Welcome to the first ride event for this Pan America ST. That's the street-oriented version of the Pan America. 17-inch wheels, road tires, and a road-oriented suspension setup with less travel. I would argue that this is how this bike was always meant to be, because it already made for a pretty good sport tourer. Now it's actually configured from the factory as such. And you join me in Ohio for the first ride event with Harley-Davidson. Today's going to be a great day of twisty roads here through Ohio on a stretch of pavement called the Triple Nickel. Now, while we're still waiting for the bike to get warmed up, we can talk a little bit about comfort. For one, the seat, very nice and plush, and we've still got the adaptive suspension that lowers itself when you come to a stop to make things a little bit easier, and you can turn that off if you don't like it. This windshield is pretty minimal. You could turn to the aftermarket if you wanted a little bit extra, but I think for a factory out-of-the-box sport tourer, it's not bad. Already we've got our first little section of twisty roads here for the Pan Am, and already you could tell that this bike is much better set up to be a handling machine on pavement, because this 17-inch front wheel versus the 19-inch front wheel on the regular Pan America, it's going to be a world of difference. This bike is also a good amount lighter than it used to be. They stripped some weight out of it, so it's around 540 pounds, which is, of course, not to say that it's light, because 540 pounds is a little bit of a porky motorcycle, but still 30 pounds lighter than it used to be. All right, now we can get into the throttle a little more. I'm in sport mode. Ooh, even short shifting it. That is so much fun on this bike. I wish it made a little bit more noise. It certainly doesn't have the Harley V-twin sound that a lot of people are used to and that a lot of people love if you're already a Harley rider. If you're somebody that's coming from another brand and another kind of bike, then you might not care, but it could make a bit more noise. Again, another thing that you could turn to the aftermarket for and find a nice pipe for this motorcycle. I haven't actually heard one of these bikes opened up in person with a louder pipe, but I'm sure it would sound pretty decent. You get some induction noise as it comes from the factory, but I got to imagine to the microphone in my helmet, you're not hearing much. Now let's take a closer look at the exterior of the motorcycle in question, because so far we've gotten to ride it a little bit, but we haven't really explored the outside of it. And if you've seen Pan Americas of the past, you might be used to something like what's right behind me here: knobby tires, crash bars, hand guards, and a bike that's kitted out to be an adventure machine. In sport touring configuration, it's still the same platform, chassis, and very similar bodywork, but there are some differences. The bodywork, especially this front fender, is a little bit different, more street-oriented. Obviously, the first thing that you'll notice that's very different are the wheels and tires. So 17s, it's a 120, 70, 17 in the front, and it's a 180, 55, 17 in the rear. So this is a pretty wide rear wheel and tire setup, and that is going to change the way that this motorcycle handles dramatically. The bodywork on this bike says 1250 ST to let you know which version of the Pan America this is. And overall, it looks right at home, I would say, as a sport tourer. There are still a few things on this motorcycle that make me think, you know, some adventure bike roots, like this bar here underneath the headlight. But all in all, it seems like the Pan America has found its stride with some street tires. There's a few other notable differences between this bike and other models of the Pan America. You'll see up front a different radiator shroud that is a little bit more exposed, because you don't need the same rock protection that you would on an adventure bike. And as well, this windshield is not adjustable like it is on the Pan America Special that we've been riding a little bit on this event as well. There's also no center stand under here, although this is exactly where that part would mount. So there's a few parts like that if you wanted to fit onto this bike, I'm sure you could do so with relative ease. You'll also notice no skid plate under here like some of the more rugged Pan Americas. So far, the roads that we've been riding have been pretty incredible. Butter smooth pavement, hilly, so some nice elevation change, very twisty, and a lot of fun. Where we are is about an hour outside of Columbus, Ohio. The town we're staying in is called Nelsonville. There's not a whole lot there. There's like 3 restaurants, but I didn't come for the restaurants. I came to ride a bike, and this is an epic place to ride. And the other thing that I'm enjoying so far today is the quick shifter that's set up on it. That's always a nice thing to have, especially on a more premium motorcycle with a price point right at $20,000. This is not an inexpensive bike by anybody's measure. Now we're on the triple nickel, and this section of road has not disappointed one bit. This is fantastic. Nice elevation change up and down. This reminds me a lot of being back home in Appalachia, because these roads are dead quiet. I can't remember the last time we passed a car. There's a lot of elevation change. The roads wander along and they're butter smooth. So this is a really nice bit of riding we're getting to do now. And the Pan Am feels 100% at home doing exactly what we're doing. So it's a bike that I'm happy to be on for this stretch of pavement. There are quite a few different modes you can access through this 6.8-inch screen, and you can tap into all of that using these switches that are right here on the handlebar. And if I flip over to my settings, then I can go over to ride customization and look at my different ride modes. There's rain, road, sport, and a custom couple of settings that you can go in and program yourself, which is nice because there are a lot of rider aids on these bikes. So if I flip through, you can change the engine map, the braking, throttle response, traction control, ABS, and the adaptive ride height, because the suspension does move up and down when you come to a stop. And if you don't like that, you can lock in the ride height, or you can adjust how long it takes before the suspension drops down. Now, the Pan America already had some beefy Brembo brakes before they turned it into more of a street machine, but the wheels and tires aren't the only spot where they made an adjustment. The suspension is switched up as well. And you can see some of my adjustments for the front forks here. Showa 47mm inverted forks, and these have a little bit less travel than the off-road versions of the Pan America, and they're also set up stiffer for the street. Linkage for the monoshock here in the rear can be seen below this massive swing arm, and there is electronic preload adjustment on this monoshock as well. Powering the ST is Harley's Revolution Max 1250 V-twin. This is still, I would argue, their most impressive engine in the lineup to this day. There's a lot of technology in this engine. It's liquid cooled, it's dual overhead cam, variable valve timing, so there's a lot this motor has that most Harley V-twins don't have, and because of that, it's also pretty power dense for an engine in Harley's lineup. 150 horsepower and 94 pound-feet of torque in this application. I also want to say a quick thanks to Scott and the team over at Rider Justice. It's because of their help and their support that we're able to go out and do trips like this and ride cool motorcycles and make videos about them. And if you're ever on your bike or even in your car and you're in an incident and you need legal representation, make sure you call Scott and the team first. And they work with people all over the country, and you can find them using the link below. One area where I would like to see Harley do some work is in the color options on these STs. I like this gray. I think it's a nice subtle shade of paint with some red accents as well. The red that I was riding today has some nice pop to it, and of course you can get it in classic black with some red accents. So far that's it for the color palette, and I think they could use more options. After spending the day with the 1250 ST, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is a much better handling bike than the off-road version with a 19-inch front wheel. These 17s completely change the character of the bike, and not to mention as well these Michelin tires that it's fitted with make it a great twisty road carving bike. I think whether or not this makes sense over an off-road version of the Pan America depends a lot on where you live. Since I'm based in Colorado, I would probably get one with knobby tires, but this bike as a sport tourer makes a lot of sense because it's always been very comfortable. It's always had a lot of nice features that made it practical, easy, and comfy to go long distances. And I think there's a lot of people that might be interested in this bike but don't really have any aspirations to go off-road, in which case the ST would hands down be the motorcycle to get if you've got $20,000 to shell out for it. So let me know what you think in the comments below. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.